Okay, so that's great to see so many people from so many lovely places, many of places I've visited. So lovely to have you here. We have a packed last session. So take a deep breath and get ready because we're going to have a packed session for this last one. So we're going to take a look today at effective formative assessment. And as you can see on the slide, my name is Nina Lauder. So I think this is a good quote to start out with when we're talking about assessment. It says, the greatest mistake you can make in life is to be continually fearing you will make one. And I find that this happens a lot actually in teacher training, that quite often teachers are hesitant to give an answer because they're worried that maybe another coworker or a director or a colleague might say, oh, she forgot the third person S. Oh, she didn't say that word correctly. So I think this is something we need to help our students understand, that mistakes are part of learning and that making mistakes are things that we can learn from. So that's sort of the base of our session today. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick look and define what formative assessment is, just in case somebody doesn't know. And then we have a lot of practical ideas, and then the closing and the feedback. And we will send you a PDF summary of the main slides after the session. Okay, so please don't be concerned if the slide goes quickly or if you didn't have time to copy the information, because you will be getting a PDF summary through Pearson. Okay, ready, guys? First task. First task. I did a little bit of like a project about me. I sometimes do this with my students, but I'm going to make you guys guess. So you have like a project page here. So it says, hello, my name is Nina, and you have number one. Number one, if you see on the left, it could be Australia, it could be Canada, A or B. Number two, we can see here, it has a number two and it says, is that my pet? Or is that my foster dog? What do you think for number two? Lower down, we have my motto that says, attitude is a little thing that makes And finally, when my birthday is. So you have four options. You have four things, four boxes, and two options for each. So either just think about them, or if you want, you can write in the chat box, well, I think number one is A or B. What do you think? And number two, A or B. So you can just quickly jot your answers in the chat box. I think number one is A, or number two is B, whatever it is. So you decide. So you think, okay, number one is B for some people. Oh, somebody, wow, Lena, you're Radhika, you're quick. You did them all. You can do all four at the same time if you want. And we'll check. Okay, so some people think that that little doggy is my pet. Very good. Okay, you're checking the quotes as well. Okay, we're going to do this quite quickly so we can move on to the activities from the book, but you get the idea. So I would do something like this, obviously not with this information for my students. This is for you guys about how long I've been working, what I do, where I live, things like that. But you can do similar things at their level. So let's check your answers. Let's see. So, hello. My name is Nina. I'm from Canada. And that little doggy was my latest fostered dog. So I don't have a pet, but I do foster animals. So I foster normally Spanish Greyhounds. So that was my most recent foster dog, Sol, who is now living in Holland. And my motto was, yes, attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. And my birthday is in September. So if I were doing this in class, obviously, I would dedicate more time to it, things that make me happy, things about me, blah, blah, blah. And then I would have, of course, the students do their own. So you could adapt this to different age groups, but having a little project page like this to introduce yourself to the students can be a very nice way of building connections with them. So there are the answers. You don't have to keep on guessing, but well done if you guessed correctly. So now I do need your answers. We're going to be talking about formative assessment. How do you feel about this topic? Number one, you write in the chat box number one if you're confident. This is something I know a lot about. Easy peasy. Number two, I know a little bit, but I could still learn some more. Or number three, I still need to learn a lot. Okay, we've had a couple of ones, lots of twos. Okay. Okay, so the people who are putting in ones, feel free to share your answers with us during this session. That's good. Okay, so most of us are putting in twos, which means we have some knowledge and some doubts. Great. And then we have a few threes and a few ones. That's good. Things like this are a way of getting feedback from your students. So when you're starting a topic, you might say, how much do you know about tropical animals? Or how much do you know about reported speech? Or how much do you know about toys in the toy shop? So things like that. So this is a good way for you to take the pulse when you're beginning a class to find out what they know and they don't know. Good job, guys. Well done. Well filled in. Another thing you can do at the beginning of class that I do a lot is this KWL chart. So you're probably familiar with this. Exactly, it's student self-assessment, Anna. Exactly. We have the students assess themselves, but it also gives us an idea of what they are looking for or what level they're at. So I'm sure you've seen these KWL charts. I use these from 6, 7-year-olds. I even use them in preschool where I write the information, but I use this with young learners, teenagers, adults, advanced, beginners. It really doesn't make a difference. You can use it in many different situations. So in this case, if we were talking about formative feedback, some of you wrote number one. What are some things you know, or people with number two? What do we know about formative feedback? So you would write in your chart. If you want, you can copy the chart, or we could write, if we had time, on the blackboard or in the chat box, things we know. In the middle column, we would write things we want to know. How can I use formative assessment in a class of 30 students with mixed levels? How can I use songs for formative assessment? Okay, so those would be the things we would complete before we start our lesson. And then as we go through the lesson, or at the end of the lesson, the students can fill in what they have learned, okay? So we're not gonna go into this chart in detail now because we have a lot to do, but these are excellent tools as well for your classroom. Okay, so the KWL. So what do you know about formative assessment? What do you want to know? You can just do this on your own in your head for now. And if you want, you can copy the chart. Okay, so let's get into the topic. We're going to be talking about formative assessment. So first, let's take a look at the assessment techniques. So we're looking here at a plant. Look at that plant growing. And one person who's looking at the plant says, oh, looking at the leaves, this plant needs a little more water and some fertilizer. The other person looks at the plant and says, hey, this plant has grown 2 centimeters in 1 week as they are measuring the plant. So if we look here at the question in yellow, how are the assessments different? What differs between those two types of assessment? Can you see any differences there? What tools we're using, how we're assessing? So how are these two forms of assessment different? And then here, if we look at the next question, how are the forms of assessment different? And also here, do we get information from both ways? So when we're looking here, exactly, we're looking at processes versus results. Very good, Ratka. Okay, we're looking at quality, not quantity. Nice points there. Very good. Are we getting information from both things? From observing the plant and measuring the plant, are we getting information? Yeah, exactly, Svetlana. We're getting information, but we're getting different types of information and we're using different types of tools. So this is sort of the key to these different forms of assessment that we're going to look at today. So in the real world, are our skills always assessed using tests? When we look at these two weights, this one with the fertilizer or the one with the ruler would be a bit like a test. So when you're out in the real world, is everything always done with tests? No, exactly. And so then that means we sometimes have a clash with what we're doing and what we're having the children do at school and what's going to happen in their real life. So in real life, you might have a report from your boss or something like that, but it wouldn't be common for your kids or your husband or your neighbor to give you a test to find out if you're a good mom or a good neighbor or a good husband or a good wife. They would probably use the other technique on the left of observing, looking, giving some feedback, offering some suggestions for change. So these are our two types of feedback in the classroom. As we said with the ruler, when we're just measuring, we're looking for quantities, we're looking for results. This would be called summative assessment. So in summative assessment with our ruler, like we were looking at, you have benchmarks, Common European Framework, Cambridge Young Learners exams. You have certain prerequisites that you're supposed to meet, certain levels, certain standards that are expected of you. Also, when we're talking about summative assessment, it gives you an idea of how students work on specific tasks. Exactly, Svetlana. Things like tests, grades, things like that. Students are graded, as Svetlana said. And in education, we would call this summative assessment or often referred to as assessment of learning. What have they learned? Let's assess exactly that. So assessment of learning can be done. Students acquire knowledge, they take a test or an exam, they're given a grade. So this is something I think we are all very familiar with, either from our own childhood or when we taught, when we're teaching ourselves, and this would be associated with traditional teaching methods. I teach you, you take an exam, I give you the results. Okay? So this is something I think we more or less understand and have in our systems. Now, what's the difference here with formative assessment, which we looked at, which was saying you need some fertilizer, needs a bit more water, maybe the pot's too small. This would be our formative assessment. So here, progress is measured in an ongoing way and diagnostically. So this means that we're not just making the observation, we're giving advice on how to improve the situation as well. We're making a diagnosis, like a doctor. With formative assessment, not only are we looking at things in an ongoing way, we're also trying to get information on the learning process. Not just at one moment of their learning or one chapter of their learning, we're trying to figure out how they're doing on the learning process. We're looking at how to improve outcomes and performance. We're not just looking, yes, no, you got 9 out of 10, you got 6 out of 10. We're actually looking at how we can improve those outcomes. We're offering support, guidance, assistance. So the same for the poor little plant. We're not just saying, well, it grew. No, it didn't grow. We're saying, ooh, it could grow more if we give it a bigger pot. It might do better if we give it less water or more water. So this is the idea behind formative assessment. Formative assessment is referred to as assessment for learning. Assessment of the learning process rather than just what they have learned, the facts or the figures they have learned. So when we talk about assessment for learning, let's see, I just want to see what Alegria has to say. Exactly. I am in total agreement with you, Allegra. I'm a firm believer that we need both. So here we are not saying, throw away the tests. No more measuring the plant. No, we're just saying that if we only measure the plant, we might not really know why it's not growing well or why it's growing so quickly. So I'm a firm believer as well, like Allegra, that we need to do both constant observation and assessment of learning and also testing to see how they do. So great point there, Allegra. And I'm in total agreement with you there. So when we're looking here at assessment for learning, we're looking at how they acquire knowledge. We're assessing the learning process. We are adjusting our teaching or our classroom management. Sorry, this is the assessment for learning, and then they're getting their grades. Okay, so this is assessment for learning. And then if we look here, we can use a lot of different tools. So just before I show you the tools, and again, when we talk here about giving a grade, it's not actually a grade like you got a 9 out of 10. It's more telling them where they have areas of improvement. So just very quickly in the chat box, if we're not giving them a test, if we're not doing an exam, apart from observation, how else can we find out how they're doing? What other tools can we use in class to find out how they're doing? If we want to use formative assessment tools, can you think of anything? Exactly. Very nice, Marcia, by talking to them, having a chat, walking around the room, having a little chat. Anything else? What else can we do? Bravo. Field notes, quizzes. Exactly. Games, quizzes. Fantastic. Self and peer assessment. Good ones. Excellent. Any others? Good, Katerina, Kasia. Pair work, Kasia. Pair work. Informal chats. Excellent. Good one, Svetlana. I was waiting for that one. Project work. Good job. Okay, so let's take a look. Those were excellent suggestions. Let's take a look at some more great videos. You can use videos that they watch or videos that they make. Both options are good there. Fantastic. Wow, constructive feedback. Good, Anna. The questioning is so important, not just to display questions, to get some open-ended questions. Any type of measuring, Valentina. Excellent. You guys are on fire, even after coming to all of these sessions. So here are some suggestions I had on the slide for you. You can use portfolio assessment, interviews and conversation, games. You can find out a lot watching them play the games, doing role plays, group assessment, peer assessment, as some of you said as well, that will come up, self-assessment, hands-on tasks. So this could be a project or an experiment or a artwork or a mural or whatever it is. Station activities is something we do a lot in preschool, but can also be done in primary, and I've seen it done in primary. Station activities is where you set up different stations in the room. So this is the reading corner. This is the hands-on corner. This is the phonics puzzle corner. This is the listening corner. And that students work in small groups going from station to station during the class to experiment and try different things. And you can see how they do with those. Writing samples, where you say, okay, everybody, write 2 sentences on, and you can check. Class presentations, using rubrics. I mean, the list could go on and on. Doing puzzles, projects, observing, mediation. So practically anything we do in class, like reflection tasks, all of these things can be used to help us and to help the students understand their learning process. You guys are good. I think you are pretty clear on these 2 concepts. So why? Why would we bother? Why not just give them a bunch of tests? That tells me how they're doing academically. Why would we be interested, or what benefits could we have from using formative assessment? What are some reasons why we might want to do this, or why might it be beneficial for our students? I know in my case, personally, I'm not a very good test taker. I get quite nervous on tests, and especially on multiple choice tests. Sometimes they might just be asking my name and I don't even get it right. So maybe just because I'm not a good test taker, it doesn't mean I'm not a good student or that I'm not capable of learning, but I just don't perform well on tests. So that could be one of the reasons. Good. It's good to give them feedback on the process. They feel appreciated, Svetlana. Very nice. Can help them feel more motivated, boosting their self-confidence. Exactly, Allegra. Cherishing these little steps can help them make process. It's good. A lot of you are talking about this idea of self-confidence and building confidence, and very important as well, what Adrioni is saying, to increase the student's sense of responsibility, that they're responsible as well for their own learning, that they're responsible for taking charge of how they learn and how they're being assessed. Good. Very good. Students understand where they are at that moment. And I think it's also they understand where they are and we can help them understand how to get to where they want to go to. Whereas if we just give them a test and give them a result with nothing else, we're kind of stuck. And again, keep in mind, tests can be used for formative assessment. If instead of just doing a test, marking the test, giving back the test, you got a 6, you got a 4, you got a 9, if you sit down with the students who didn't do well on the test or the students who did exceptionally well on the test and say, how did you feel? Why do you think you made those mistakes? Why wasn't this challenging for you? How could we make it more challenging for you? You can also use tests as a formative assessment tool. And let's see what Anna says here. Assessment for learning is more inclusive. Bravo, excellent point. That students can mark their own starting points and reflect on their own roles. Wow, Anna, excellent answer. Hi, Valentina, lovely to see you. Yeah, exactly. Students can get individual praise on their individual skills and their individual activities, not being judged against everybody else. Wow, Cassia, I didn't expect them to all be so awake at this time. So some of the benefits. Generally speaking, formative assessment is seen as being less stressful, sorry, than exams and tests. Okay, they can help us to fill in the gaps and identify the learning gaps for students. As it says here, it's also driven by process instead of just by results. Many of you have said it can increase motivation. It helps them identify strengths. As Janine was talking about, this idea of getting them more involved and more involucrated in their learning. Let's see what Jelena says. Exactly. Some people feel more confident with oral than written. Some people feel more confident written than oral. So it's good to provide a lot of different ways of assessing. Fantastic, guys. Exactly. Taking into the consideration learning styles as well. So here again, some other benefits. You can give more focused feedback. It's more personalized for the students. You're helping them understand how they learn. You can look at their social and emotional development as well. You can develop their future skills, and it's much more holistic. It's much more holistic. So like we saw with our plant, when you're looking at the plant's growth and then saying, well, I think it could use this or could use that. It might need this, it might need that. It's a much more holistic approach than just saying it's 12 centimeters tall. Good. Okay. So I think we are more or less probably clear on the theory behind this. And now both Cassia and Janine, both Kasia and Janine, Jean talked about praise. So well, I'm not going to go into this too much because I think it was touched on earlier, but just to think about, when do we praise students? When do we praise them? So we're not going to actually go into this in great detail because I want to move on to the practical ideas, but just think in your head, when do you praise your students? So when you praise them, remember, and Janine talked about this a little bit, when they perform well, exactly. Exactly. So every day, small things matter, the times you can. So just remember, when you are making correct, when you are giving praise, try to be specific. Try to praise effort and progress. So it's not just like, you got the best grade, you're the smartest. No, it might be, wow, last time you only wrote 3 sentences and this time you wrote 4. I'm really proud of you. Be sincere. And this one's very important, and I have a bit of a problem with this, the over praising. I sometimes go a bit overboard. So we have to be careful. And we have to be careful that we are sincere. For example, if they haven't done a good job and we're like, excellent, that doesn't really help them. Instead of saying excellent, you could say, wow, that was a really good effort. You'll see how next time you'll have it perfect, or things like that. So exactly, small praise for small things. Exactly. Exactly. You feel like doing it because they deserve it. Exactly. Every little effort matters. Very good. So I think it's good. What I quite often recommend to teachers, I think that we tend to get into praise habits that we find ourselves always saying the same things like they were saying in the previous session. Marvelous, 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 marvelous. Sometimes we might get into a rut where we find out that the only thing we're saying is, hey, good job, hey, good job, hey, good job, hey, good job, 100 times. So it is important, and I always ask my teachers that I train to have a little poster in their class with some praise words. So let's take a look at some ways to praise. So we might say things like, wow, you did it. Exactly, Allegra. That was creative. Well done. What an amazing sentence. Exactly. So we might have some things like that. I'm just going to show you some of these here, you know, from wow, you did it. Look at all the other ones we can have. I really appreciate it when you speak quietly. I noticed how you used your dictionary today. Wow, you put a lot of effort into that. You tried something new. Well done. You're really concentrating today. You worked well. Thank you for helping. You should do this. So as you can see, I mean, the list, this could go on and on. I just picked a few, but I think it is really nice if we have these sentences like, I noticed, I appreciated, thanks for, or things like that. You concentrated better today on the task than you did yesterday. Or, wow, you're trying some new things. So I think it's really important that we use praise in the correct way with our students, but that, as many of you have said, that we don't just highlight good grades or good language levels, that we highlight effort and we highlight progress for our students. So I hope those sentences will be useful for you when you go back to class. So formative assessment, as we said before, allows us to diagnose problems like a doctor. Early in the process, we can make a diagnosis, and more importantly, it allows us to do something with that. So if students are falling behind, through formative assessment, we can help them get caught up, we hope, with the rest of the group. So after that quick introduction, how do you feel? Do you have, I mean, some of you already knew the difference between formative and assessment and summative assessment. So were we feeling a little bit more? Oh, good. Okay. So now those of us who had a bit of a doubt, maybe we have a better idea now. We're going to all leave this course experts on formative assessment, I hope. Exactly. I think good. And it's very honest that some of us are still at more or less. You could write a thesis paper on this and still have more to learn. But as long as we don't have any threes, I'll be happy. So good job, guys. At least I hope the threes are now at twos, at least. So well done. Very good. So that was sort of the theoretical part here. And like I said, if we were doing this in a classroom, I would now be saying, okay, so what have you learned? What have you learned? Oh, I've learned that praise needs to be blah, blah, blah. Or I learned that we can't only measure progress through tests or whatever. We're not going to do this, but you can see how we could use our KWL chart here. Okay, so let's move on, my dears. You're doing very well. Let's do some practical ideas, because I think the theory we can find, sometimes we don't know how to put it into practice. We talked about, and Kasia talked about this, and Janine talked about this, the importance of social and emotional development, the importance of belonging, the importance of understanding and managing emotions. So this is all part of formative assessment. So when we look at emotions, let's take a look first at some emotions. So just looking at these pictures that are from one of the lovely videos from the Disney stars, different ways to praise and the 1, 2, 3. Good, great, Allegra. Awesome, man. I'm glad you can use those. So now looking here, what emotions can you see? Oh, somebody looks surprised. Somebody looks amazed. Somebody looks shocked, angry. Very good. Worried, excited. Okay, Hara, thank you. You'll have the recording if you need it. Okay, somebody's curious, somebody's wondering, somebody's excited. Okay, very good. Bye, Hara. Thanks for coming. Very good. Okay, so let's see some of the ones I had down. We might have somebody scared, excited, angry, worried, happy, surprised, expecting, things like that. If we're working in a class and we've watched this video, of course, we can then talk with the kids about the different emotions. How are you feeling today? When do you feel scared? One of the ones I talk to a lot with my kids in the class is, what do you do when you're angry? What can we do when we're angry? Because they have temper tantrums sometimes, and it's important. I mean, and temper tantrums can go all the way up to sixth grade sometimes. So, what can we do? How can we calm ourselves down? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? What can you do if you're worried? Who can you talk to? So, all of these things, we're still working on language, but we're teaching them skills that will help them deal with frustrations or deal with working in a group and having a difficulty. It will help them work better alone and with others if we help them understand how to identify emotions and how to deal with emotions. So, like I said, these videos that come with the series, the My Disney Stars and Heroes, I mean, the videos are great. They've got characters the kids are familiar with. And as you can see, the expressions on the characters' faces are fantastic. And then, of course, if you're working with older learners, it might be a little bit more vocabulary based, do a matching, and then maybe work with your pair and tell them how you feel the day. Tell them two things that make you sad, two things that make you happy, two things that make you bored, compare ideas, try to find something in common. So working on feelings, emotions, regulation. You're feeling like number 7, Lita? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know that this was a number 7 group because you all at least seem very active. Tasha and I are tired too, but we're almost there, guys. We're almost there, almost to the end. Just another half hour to go. So looking here, okay, tired but motivated is okay then. So looking here, what can we do with the social and emotional learning? So first of all, is it important? Let's see, we're going back just one moment. I'm going to go back to the green one. Okay, so the green one is not angry. She's bored or disappointed. Okay, very good. And again, these sorts of dialogues are great for the kids. Maybe one person, this sometimes happens as well when has it ever happened with you with a friend where you said, you seem so angry? And the person's like, no, I'm just tired. Or what are you so sad about? No, I'm just worried. So it's okay that sometimes when we're looking at an expression, one person might understand angry, the other person might understand worried, which is good. Those are good things. So I think Kasia has already answered one of these. Is it important? Why? And Kasia says it's very important. So why is it important for us to work on social skills? And then what can we assess and how can we assess these things using formative assessment? Very good. So Kasia says we need to understand how we feel to be able to learn. Exactly. If you're feeling nervous, sad, worried, stressed, frustrated, can English go into your brain? Probably not. Probably not English or maths or language or anything can go into your brain if you're tired and stressed and worried and hungry and all of these things. So our feelings, our emotions, our physical state will affect how we learn. So obviously extremely important. Exactly. If your mind is too busy with strong emotions, that it's going to hinder your learning process. So what we're going to look at now, and as you can see, you have some lovely, lovely worksheets throughout the books to work on emotions and how we feel and what we can do in different situations. So let's take a look at what can we assess and how we can use formative assessment to assess. So if we're looking here at social and emotional development, which is an important part of future skills, we might be looking at social awareness. We might be looking at, as you talked about in the previous session, relationship skills. You might be looking at self-awareness, as people have said. If you don't know your own strengths, it's kind of hard to work on them. So let's just think now, how can we assess these things? How can I assess that somebody's self-aware? How can I assess that somebody has good relationship skills. Let's take a look. For social awareness, we might observe them. We might see how they follow rules. Do they cheat in the games? Do they fight when they're doing a project? We might observe and think about or talk about how they resolve conflicts. What are their conflict resolution skills, resolving skills? And if they're not good at conflict resolution, how can we help them become better at resolving conflicts? And the next one, again, we can use observation. We can see random acts of kindness. And you'll see this at school. You'll see this. A kid will fall down. Some of the kids laugh. Some of the kids help the child up. That's something we can observe. Empathy, teamwork. So all of these things are, as a teacher, we can be taking note. And then, of course, with self-awareness, they can do self-assessment tasks. We can have them give their opinions. We can use these KWRL charts that we're talking about. What did you learn? What do you know? What do you want to know? They become more aware. And we can discuss, like we saw on the opening slide, the quote, how we can learn through mistakes. So all of these things together are working on their social and emotional skills, and at the same time preparing them for the real world, preparing them for the future in the workplace or in higher education. So moving on from there, and this also ties in with this social and emotional growth, we are going to look quickly at stories. Okay, Lucy, don't worry. Nice to meet you, Lucy, and we'll be sending you the PDF. So for stories, we don't use stories like Disney stories with older learners, like an I Succeed, but look at this, a real life story and using real life characters. So how can we help others? How can we help people in our real world? And then they give them some lovely examples in the video, clear suggestions, talking about citizenship, talking about relationship skills. And then look at this fantastic mind map where how can you help people? Add some ideas. What can you do? What do you do when you're in this situation? And then I love this idea of having citizenship goals. So again, it's done in a mature way, mature topics. We're not looking at, people turning blue and purple with their emotions anymore, but we are talking about things that are relative to their daily lives, looking at examples that they can follow and giving them clear suggestions that come from their own ideas and from the group on how to get along better with one another, and all based on a real life story. Of course, if we're looking at stories with the younger learners, it's a little different. And I think we're a bit more familiar with these types of techniques. So if we're looking at the story here with Hugo and his monster, two eyes, one of the kids is upset, crying, oh, don't cry, it's going to be okay, and things like that. So if we look here again, how do they feel? And I love this. Look at this. Talk buddies. Talk buddies. Are you okay? Oh no. So giving the students the language and the skills they need to face some of the daily problems they might have in the classroom or at home or in the real world. So things here like identifying their emotions, showing empathy, using drama, which is fantastic. Sometimes it's a bit too deep to talk about these things with the kids, but if we do and act out different situations, it can help them understand and build empathy. So this is very nice, using drama to help understand different situations. So the use of stories. So not only can we use stories, we can also use self-awareness activities. So we're looking at lots of different things we can do, all related to formative assessment. So here, do you think it's important to be aware of where they are and how they're doing and their struggles and where they're going? Do you think it's important for students to be aware of their own progress? Yep. Somebody says, sure. Another person saying, Cassia saying, definitely in our culture. We need to be able to judge our own. Why? Why is it so important? Why not just, I'm the teacher, I tell you if you're good or bad. That's my job. I can let you know if you're good or bad. Okay, so we're saying yes, but we're not quite sure why, maybe. Exactly, so we can learn from our own mistakes. Okay, because sometimes we might focus on deficiencies rather than strengths. Very good. Exactly. It's easier for us to say, oh, I'm doing everything wrong than to say, well, you're doing a lot of things right too. Exactly. To be able to improve and learn more effectively. Okay, fantastic, Sanita. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. Okay, so well done, guys. Great answers there. So again, when we're looking at self-assessment, one of the things I find is teachers quite often tell me, I don't do them because the students don't do them right. That's kind of a poor excuse for not doing them. I think if students are not doing them right, we need to talk it through it with them. For example, if I have a student who's really poor and is saying 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, I'm the best, I do everything perfectly, well, I have to sit down. Either they haven't understood the task or they're not able to self-assess themselves very well. And the same, the opposite. Sometimes you have students who are really good and they sit there and say, oh, I didn't do it well. I only got a 9. So it's interesting for both sides. And I think it really does help them with their motivation, as you're saying, and help them focus on what they need to focus on. So it helps them with their skills. It helps them with their self-assessment. It helps them when, you can teach them how to give praise and when to give praise to others and things like that. So all of these things I think are vitally important. And it's very good what Ivana says here. Our work, our job is to teach them to realize they can do everything, that everything is possible, but you have to try your best. And I think this is interesting what you said, Ivana, about that they can do everything. I think that we also have to be honest with students and say, well, maybe there are some things you just can't do, or that it's going to take you a lot longer to do. For example, being a little shorty like I am and not very coordinated, my chances of becoming a star basketball player are probably more limited than other people's. So it's not saying I would never be able to become a basketball player, but maybe there are other things I could focus my energies on because I might be frustrated if I try to set my goals too high in a sport where I'm probably too short and too uncoordinated to participate. So I think we do also need to, I think part of self-assessment is knowing your limits, is understanding who you are and what you're capable of. And of course, we're all able to grow, but we do need to keep some things in mind there. But wonderful information. Great, Madonna. I'm glad you're enjoying. Madonna, yeah, thanks for joining. Fantastic. Okay, so let's just move on quickly here. We're about to finish, but just have a quick stretch. We've just got a few more minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, but just have a quick stretch. We're down into the final stretch. But just move your body a bit because you've been probably sitting for a long time. And we'll just look now for the last, how much we've got. We've got about 10 minutes left to look at some games and activities, additional games and activities. Sometimes we do songs in the book and we just think, I'm just doing a song. But songs can be also excellent tools for formative assessment. So what can we assess with a song? Well, we can assess things like their listening skills, their comprehension skills, their pronunciation, their intonation, their enunciation, their interest in L2, their capacity to collaborate, their cultural awareness, their participation, their attitude. I mean, the list could go on and on. And so again, although we're using these as fun, motivating activities, for sure, Svetlana, we can also use them for grammar, for vocabulary, for spelling. There's so much. We can use them for summative or for formative things. In this case, we're looking more at how we could improve their progress, but it could also be used to see how their spelling or grammar is going. Okay, so lots of things we can assess with music. Good one, Madonna. Exactly. We tend to focus on their production skills. Fantastic. With projects, we said that we can use projects as assessment tools. Well, again, we can be looking at their comprehension, their skills, communication, collaboration, working with others, social skills, relationships, capacities, self-capacities. as Cassie was saying, where am I strongest? Where would I work best on the project? Their organizational skills. So again, just by doing a project, and as you've said, we can also be looking at their writing, their grammar, their speaking, and things like that. Exactly. But as grammar and pronunciations are things that we can sort of do with tests as well, projects are giving us this opportunity to test all these other skills and then be able to comment on it with the kids and say, I really liked how you worked together today, but you've got to be careful and let everybody have a turn. It's not a personal project, it's a group project. And you were getting a little bit carried away doing all of the stuff. Remember that everybody has to participate. So we can also coach them and help them understand where they maybe need to go back a bit or push forward a bit. And that can be done very easily with projects. And when we look at projects, of course, they're tied into so many different things. You'd be looking at their global skills. Are they aware of the, ecological impacts of people on the world? What sort of sustainability goals could we have in mind? We can be testing their visual skills. Are they able to decipher information from a visual? Are they able to design things? Are they able to organize their ideas well? Are they able to organize their groups well? So all of these things can be done through working on projects. You can see here, communication, collaboration, social skills. And then here again, we can be looking at how they compare and contrast ideas, key skill for life, how they organize their things, and then their capacity to use creativity. So as you can see on a 2-page spread, apart from judging and looking at their language skills, there are lots of different things we can be assessing through formative feedback. And then, of course, they also have their own reflection task at the end of the spread. And then another thing I just loved in this series was the progress journal. And I use these all the time when I'm doing longer online courses. My students always have a learning journal, a reflection journal, your KWL chart. There's always something where they are checking their progress. And so I was thrilled when I opened up these books and saw the progress journals. Look at that tool. Look at that fantastic tool. So, okay, it's a review page. We use review pages. But if they see it as their own journal of their own progress, things like pick the activity you like, what did you do well on? Think about the things you did. Draw, share, communicate. I think these are fantastic things for the kids to work on. So they're using, things like stickers and fun. It's not a test, but, they're reviewing, they're making personal choices, they're reflecting, they're being creative, they're assessing their own progress, they're working with others. I think, what better tool than something that's not being graded, but is helping them understand what they know or don't know. And quite often when they look at these things, like these picture dictionaries, is when they'll realize, oh, I didn't remember that word. Ah, that's right, that was that word. I think these are fantastic, fantastic tools for the classroom. And as you can see here with this one, I mean, look at the illustrations. I don't even think kids would realize they were being assessed or doing a formative assessment or summative assessment task with something like this. And then I love these things like star learner, this unit was blah, my favorite ocean word is. So that doesn't have anything to do with your academic skills. That's just you giving an opinion and sharing opinion, which is what happens in the real world. We're teaching them skills for the real world. And as you can see here, the activities are guided, scaffolded, they're motivating because of the images and the stickers and things like that, and that they're real life like tasks. And then also exam like tasks. So that you're killing a lot of birds with one stone with these sorts of pages, which I think are fantastic, fantastic resources. Just to finish off, we're going to just look at a few games or game-like tasks. So things like this is for older learners, but I think it is important. They're all using the cell phone. They're using Game Boys. They're using this. They're using the other. It's kind of nice if you're doing the review for it to at least have a more gamey format to it. So we're still checking their progress, but we're not doing it in a dry, formal way. We're doing it in a fun, game-like way. And then, of course, with games for formative assessment, we have loads of options. In the Pearson Primary Academy, there are great, amazing resources here with integrated skills, options, suggestions for every level. We're teaching them in a non-threatening way. We're reviewing in a way that's not going to make them feel like they're being tested, giving them some positive reinforcement, checking on their social skills. I mean, there's so many options through games. Very good for checking their emotional regulation. You know, do they get angry when they lose, or are they able to continue? And we can build a positive environment. So definitely recommend you to check out the resources here as well for games. And then, of course, in the book, you have lots of games as well, you know, review games where students are working on the key language, but in a fun, motivating way and with the exam skills contextualized rather than isolated. So just to finish off, we're going to take a look here at some more things here. The flashcards are our last section. So we don't have time to discuss how we would use them, but let's take a look. Thank you, Madonna, for joining us. We've just got a few minutes left if you want to stick around just for this last part of flashcards. So what we're going to look at here is some PPR activities you can do with your flashcards that you can use to observe their process. So here, for example, you can have your flashcards and you can put the flashcards around the room or on a table and touch the flashcard. You can pass the flashcard and say the word on the flashcard, show me the flashcard, give me the flashcard. You can put two flashcards up and have them face or point left or right, according to the sentence you say. You can have them use the flashcards and move them, you know, put the robot next to the dog, put the doll under the suitcase or whatever it is. You can have them doing drama games, act out what's on the card, using fly swatters with the cards on the board, having cards on the floor and tossing a bean bag, or having them dramatize doing things like, can you show me? So when they're doing these sorts of activities, we as teachers can be keeping an eye on them and evaluating their progress. And then here, the odd one out, which is something that comes up on the Cambridge exams as well, is again an excellent way to have the students work on language. We can be evaluating their skills. And here we can also be really evaluating their critical thinking skills. So which one is different and why? So the kids might say things like, well, the snake's the only orange one, or the snake's the only one with no legs. Or maybe they'll say, you know, the turtle's the only one with a shell. And so they're talking about things they like, but also using language and critical thinking skills. And just for the final one here, I do these a lot. I just draw a chart on the board, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, or whatever I want to do. I put up some flashcards on the board. We'll do things. We'll do a couple of rounds, like what can you see in A2? They have to go to row A, number 2, the robot. Where is the scooter? B2 is a train, yes or no? So they have these sorts of activities. And then what I start doing sometimes is turning the cards over. So they have to then remember where the cards were and what they were. So I think this is one of the games I use a lot in my classes, and it gives me loads of information on my students. So just to wrap up, were there any new things you learned? Was there anything you could add to your L column today? Did you get any new ideas, any new games, any new suggestions? So you can just think about it and put those in your L column. And like I said, these can be used, this KWL chart can be used for many different levels, many different circumstances, and is an excellent formative assessment tool because it can help us and help the students see their progress. You like the different ways of phrasing, Allegra, I'm glad. So just to close off here, which part did you like best? What did you like best? We had the warm-up where we did the little project page with me and my dog and the rest of it. We did section 2, which was the theory. And then we did section 3, which was the practical ideas. Oh, wow. Ho, ho, ho. Nice feedback from me. Thank you, my darlings. Yeah, I always like part 3 as well. For me, when I'm in a session, I'm always going for number 3. That's great. I'm glad. Okay, wow, Radka, you like probably 2 the best. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that feedback, my dears. And thank you for joining us. I tried to make sure we finished right on time. We still have 3 minutes left if you have any questions. I hope it didn't seem too rushed, but I wanted to make sure we got through all of the lovely, lovely materials. And so Havala Lepo, oh my God, I can't think of any other ways to say thank you suddenly. Havala, I can do dziękuję. I can do Eferstopoli. So, Pasiba. So well done. Thank you very much. You guys are great. Well done. You'll get all the information soon.